The anime starts with our protagonist, Maki Maehara, walking down the hallway, reflecting on the things he's learned in life. In every classroom, it's the same story. There's always that group that lights up the whole place with their smiles, and then there are those who keep to themselves, isolated, like him. Then we go back in time to where it all began. It's the first day of school, and Maki isn't excited at all, because he just hates spring. The teacher arrives, introduces herself as Miki Saga, and says she'll be with the class throughout the year. Everyone applauds, and she looks super happy. Meanwhile, Maki is lost in thought, thinking it's just another school year, leaving behind the goodbyes of March and starting the new encounters of April. In the middle of his daydreaming, the teacher hands out a questionnaire to each student, saying she wants to get to know everyone. Here's the thing. This is exactly what Maki hates most about this time of year. With no way out, he fills out the sheet. Then the teacher picks a random paper, and guess what? It's Maki's. He has that involuntary reaction because of his ridiculous bad luck at being picked first, but he stands up anyway. Miki reads his form and comments that he came from Matsubara Middle School, asking if he's not from around here. Low on energy, Maki explains that he moved here last winter because of family reasons. The teacher notices that for hobbies, he wrote video games, and for likes, nothing in particular. So she tries to keep the conversation going by asking what he does on weekends. With no way out, he says that his mom works on Fridays, so he has the house all to himself, orders pizza, drinks cola, plays games on the big TV, and checks out some stuff on the computer. Good life. The teacher asks if there's anything else. When he says he watches movies, she wants to know what kind. He answers that he likes shark movies, crocodile movies, and some low-budget ones. Making it clear that's his taste and wanting to end the questioning, he sits down right away. Not wanting to drag things out, the teacher moves on to the next card and calls on the student with the last name Amami. With contagious energy, the girl introduces herself as Yu Amami, explains that her name is written with the characters for sky, sea, and sunset, and wishes everyone a great year. Miki compliments her hair, and Yu explains that her grandmother is a foreigner, and everyone says she looks just like her grandmother did when she was young. The teacher reads that she came from Tachibana Girls' School, which has its own high school, and gets curious. Yu explained that she wanted to try a co-ed school after so much time only with girls. Right after, she pulls her friend up to introduce herself. With the teacher's permission, she says her name is Umi Asano. She came from the same school, was surprised they ended up in the same class, and to be honest, she's already tired of her friend always asking people to look after her. Yu jumps up to hug Umi, complaining that she's so mean, almost looking like an abandoned puppy. While the two of them are goofing around up front, classmates whisper that they're really lucky to have the two of them there. Maki already figures the whole class is going to revolve around them, but he doesn't even care. And so, after the worst first impression ever, Maki keeps spending his days in solitude, while the two of them enjoy everything with the rest of the class. Even so, he thinks he's already used to being alone. Deep down, he wouldn't mind joking around with friends after class, but he convinces himself that he does just fine without friendships. During break another day, Yu tells Umi that they survived another week, proud that she only fell asleep twice. Umi reminds her that sleeping in class isn't exactly something to brag about. While they're talking, some guys near Maki comment that Yu is an angel on Earth and that Umi isn't far behind. At that moment, Umi shows her a movie on her phone that she wants to see. Yu puts on a poker face and tries to hide that she thinks the idea is kinda boring. Umi says it's fine, she was gonna watch it alone anyway. Yu insists on watching it together and asks which platform it's on. Umi explains that it's not available anywhere because it's super indie. They agree to meet up the next day. Right at that moment, Maki walks by and happens to see the phone screen, finding out about the movie. As he leaves, he mutters under his breath that she has good taste. Later, while walking down the street and seeing some guys laughing together, he blurts out the word friend without realizing it. He shakes his head and keeps walking. He goes into a video store he loves and heads straight for the classic section. When he's about to grab the movie, he steps back after noticing someone else reaching for the same tape and apologizes. The person pouts. It's Umi, complaining that she was standing next to him for ages and he didn't even notice. She asks if this is the first time they've talked, even though they're in the same class. Maki agrees, but remembers the conversation and asks about her plans. Umi realizes he overheard and lightly scolds him, saying it's rude to eavesdrop on others. Maki gets nervous and apologizes, which makes her smile. She explains that they were talking loudly and apologizes for the noise. Then she admits that the story she told Yu was only half true. Her real goal was to talk to him. Feel the vibe. Maki is caught off guard. She shows him a real introduction form where she wrote that she loves cola and fizzy drinks, that she found her soulmate, and that she'd love to be his friend. She explains that this time she filled it out for real just like he did on the first day. Without wasting any time, she asks him for a movie recommendation. Maki thinks for a moment and picks Piranha Shark. Umi laughs at the cover, saying it doesn't make any sense. Then she talks about Kung Fu Shark, honestly saying the movie's so bad it's actually good. Maki agrees. That's exactly the point. And that's how the two of them became secret friends. Back in the hallway, this is when he gets Umi's message, asking if they can meet up. And he says yes. Later, Umi arrives at his apartment. Maki lets her know he already ordered the food. When he shows her the cola and fries, she asks about the main dish. As if they were totally in sync, Umi starts saying it with him, word for word. Teriyaki chicken with garlic, angel and demon cheese, double cheese, extra mayo, and triple garlic. Maki's impressed, and when she flashes a teasing smile, he tells her she has great taste. Who wouldn't want that kind of connection? They make a toast to the end of the week. Umi asks what game they're playing today. Maki says he woke up feeling competitive and picked a shooting game. She warns him she's gonna crush him, but he reminds her she lost 10-0 last week. She swears she practiced at home. After a while, Umi is struggling with the controls while Maki plays super relaxed with a little grin, winning as always. In the end, Umi almost punches the floor, but he grabs her hand because of the neighbors. Frustrated, she demands to switch games. When night falls, she says she has to go. Suddenly, his gaze locks onto her. Umi notices and jokes, asking if he liked what he saw, covers herself up, and starts calling him a pervert. He explains that he was just surprised that she's so skinny, even though she eats so much. She fires back that it's because she works out, and teases him that with his little belly, he has no room to talk. She pinches his stomach, discovers his weak spot, and goes on the attack. After teasing him a lot, she grabs her things and heads to the door. She comments that it's only the third time they've met, but she can hardly believe how well they get along. Maki agrees, but says it only happened because she made the weird decision to start a conversation. She fires back that he's even weirder for inviting a girl he just met over to his place. Changing the subject, she lets him know that next week they're going out. A few seconds later, it finally sinks in for Maki. Going out means actually going outside. He runs into the hallway and she confirms shopping, eating out, arcade. She explains that she feels guilty for always causing trouble, so she's going to be his guide to the outside world. He asks if it's just going to be the two of them. She says of course, since no one knows they're friends. That was the deal, since he's a ghost at school and she's the center of attention. Umi teases him, saying he must be nervous about going on a date. Maki is thrown off by the word and denies it. She tells him to relax, and that in the worst case, if they get caught, they can just say they're dating. Maki panics, but she tells him she's just kidding and leaves, reminding him the outing is set. Later, Maki tells his mom, who can't believe what she's hearing, and asks him to repeat it. He explains that he's going out with someone on Friday and wants his allowance in advance. His mom comes closer and asks if he's not being blackmailed. Maki assures her he's not, that they're just friends. She asks if it's not imaginary. When he says no, she gets totally excited. The day comes and his mom gives him 10,000 yen, but he tells her 2,000 is more than enough. On the day, they text each other to confirm. His icon is a cola soda. Hers is a shark. At school, Umi makes a hand signal behind her back to Maki, who gets nervous. Then he notices the weird movement and Umi plays it off, saying her back was just itchy. During break, Maki goes to eat in the quiet corner and notices a guy about to confess to a girl. He tries to sneak away but bumps into Yu and Nina, who want to spy on Umi and end up dragging him along. He feels the tension, the three of them watching from a distance. The guy asks Umi if she wants to go out with him. Without thinking much, she hits him with a quick "I'm sorry," rejecting him on the spot. The guy asks if she has a boyfriend, but she says she's not looking for anything right now. Nina quietly comments that there was no way she'd say yes, because if a guy keeps chasing after girls, it's obvious he's gonna get rejected. Yu agrees and remembers that he had done the same thing to her. Meiki thinks the guy's got a lot of nerve confessing to two pretty friends in such a short span of time. While Umi tries to end the conversation, the guy suggests they could start out as friends. She shoots back, that makes her even less interested. With that settled, Yu apologizes to Maki for dragging him into this. Before leaving, she asks to borrow his phone, saves her number in his contacts, and asks him to give her a call, telling him it's a secret. He realizes that now he has one more secret to keep. Later, Maki tells Umi that he saw the upperclassman's confession, leaving out the fact that Yu and Nina were there too. Umi assures him that she's not upset. Maki asks if she's really that popular. She says she kinda is, but it's nothing compared to Yu. Curious, he asks her to explain what she thinks about being popular. He says it means people only get close out of self-interest, you have to deal with annoying people, and it sounds like a nightmare. He'd rather be alone than deal with all that hassle. Umi gets it, but thinks he's being a bit dramatic, though she quickly adds that's exactly what she likes about him. As a friend, just so there's no confusion. Maki replies that she's not bad as a friend either. She fires back that if it weren't for her, he'd be in a bad spot. He shoots back that without him, she wouldn't have anyone to talk to about her nerdy interests. That sparks their competitive spirit, and they grab the controllers for another match. The week goes by until Friday, the day of the trip, finally arrives. Maki texts to say he's heading to the station. Umi, still with you and Nina, uses the old excuse that she has things to do at home. Nina fires back that even though she complains, she seems happy and accuses her of hiding a boyfriend. Yu thinks that's ridiculous, but hesitates and asks just to be sure. Umi flicks her on the head and scolds Nina, all in good fun. At the station, Maki arrives and is surprised by Umi from behind. She teases him about his all-black outfit, advising him to match his colors next time. Maki focuses on the next time part. She hinted that they're going out again. He takes her to a store with an otaku vibe. Umi finds it interesting, but says she's loving getting to know new places. She asks him to speak more intimately, but when he tries, he calls her by her last name without any honorifics and gets all tense. Umi pouts because he didn't use her first name. He suggests they switch to first names, but uses the excuse that they're not that close yet. Not wanting to lose, she threatens to drag him to the adults-only section. With the win in the bag, they go eat at a fast food place, where Umi recommends an anthology called Shark Angels. Maki gets interested and asks if he can make plans with her every week. She realizes he's worried about Yu and Nina and assures him that she meets up with them on the other days. At that moment, some girls recognize Umi as the one who turned down the upperclassmen and start saying she's not all that. Umi gets upset, grabs a French fry, and in a sweet tone asks Maki to open his mouth, pretending they're a couple. She purposely speaks loudly and kicks him under the table so he'll play along. The girls decide it must just be someone who looks like her, because the popular girl would never go out with that guy. Umi stands up angrily because they talked about him like that, but Maki asks her to let it go, saying what matters is that she really knows him. She sits down still mad and asks if they can go to the arcade, where they have a blast. After a while, Maki suggests it's time to go. He says he's going to the bathroom first. Alone, he thinks about how strange all of this is. He never imagined he'd go out with Umi, but he thinks it was worth it and feels happy. Right then, he's caught off guard when Yu shows up with Nina and some other guys from school. Nina doesn't recognize Maki without his uniform. Yu asks if he's with someone. He says yes, and at that moment his phone rings. Umi hears the whole conversation. Yu is happy and invites him to hang out with the group. Nina tries to warn Yu not to pressure Maki, but in her innocence, Yu thinks the more people, the better. Nina doesn't see it that way. And Yu bluntly asks if she doesn't like Maki, leaving Nina with no way out. Maki understands why Umi prefers to go out with just him on Fridays. Staying calm, he turns down the invitation and explains that some people just aren't made for groups. They force themselves to keep up and end up exhausted. He knows, because he's like that. Realizing he said too much, he sums it up by saying he already has plans with a friend and leaves, leaving Yu speechless. When he meets up with Umi, she thanks him for saving her. Then he decides to open up his heart. He says that about a year ago, he dove into nerdy stuff. She was always the leader, the one who kept the group together. That's what happens when you're pretty and smart. But it didn't take long for her to realize that people stopped thanking her and started thinking it was just her responsibility. The pressure built up until she felt like she was going to lose her mind, and she found refuge in her hobbies, wanting a friend to share them with. Maki says she should have spoken up sooner. She agrees, but points out that she had never really been friends with the boy before. She apologizes for the confusion earlier that day and says she's going to talk to Yu, who texted her worried that she might have upset him. Maki feels like he's the one who should be apologizing, but Umi tells him to relax. That's what friends are for. That brings Maki a huge sense of peace. She starts gently running her fingers through his hair, and when he falls asleep, she takes the chance to thank him once again. The next day, Yu goes straight to Maki and bows to apologize for bothering him. That gets the whole class's attention. Maki tells her she's forgiven and that he knows she meant well. Happy, she asks if he has time later because she wants to talk. He agrees, but when she loudly asks if he hasn't changed his number, the whole class stops. Now everyone knows he has the contact info of the popular Yu Amami. Maki quietly reminds her it was supposed to be a secret. It finally clicks for her, and she says goodbye like a robot, stiffly walking back to her seat. He gets a message from Umi with a giant OK sticker. After class, Yu explains that she was nervous about being alone with the boy, so that's why Umi's tagging along. She assures him that Umi is great at keeping secrets. As they enter the theater, Umi cheerfully says it's nice to meet him, and Maki follows suit. The two of them comment that Nina is following them again and take off running, dragging Maki by the hand. Nina jumps out from her hiding spot, yelling at them to stop, but Umi yells back, calling her a paparazzi. In the middle of all the running, Maki mentions that Umi seems to be having fun, and even though she says it's just his imagination, she never lets go of his hand. Once they lose Nina, Maki suggests they go to his place. Umi scolds him, saying he can't just invite a girl he barely knows over like that, pretending to be outraged. In the end, they go there anyway. Umi says they're there to talk about what happened, but first, with a scary smile, she asks how the two of them have each other's numbers. With no way out, they tell the truth. Umi flicks each of them on the forehead as punishment and tells him to get straight to the point. Yu bows to Maki, apologizing for ignoring him the other day. Maki takes the opportunity to apologize for what he said when he was leaving, explaining that he gets withdrawn in large groups. Yu concludes that he must really like that friend, making both of them blush on the inside. To break the tension, Umi says that everything's settled. But before leaving, Yu reaches out her hand and asks if he'd like to be her friend. Maki and Umi are caught off guard, but Yu keeps that innocent and kind essence that's her trademark. And that's how episode 2 comes to an end. That was the end of the episode. Comment part 3, so I know you made it this far and want to see how this drama unfolds. I'll give your comment a heart. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next episode, because the hype is just getting started. Without further ado, Rebobina says goodbye and see you next time. The next day, our protagonist shows up at school with his usual vibe. Chill, keeping to himself, try not to draw any attention. But as soon as Yu spots him, she calls out his name in front of everyone, walks right up to him, and says, "Wow, it's a beautiful day today, isn't it?" Talk about an awkward moment. Our guy even tries to play alone, but then Nina shows up wanting to know if the Maki you mentioned is actually Maehara. And to you, that's obvious, right? She even teases Nina, asking if she doesn't know her own classmate's name. Nina tries to explain that it's not like that, but Yu quickly cuts her off, saying they just made up, that's all. It sounds cute, but the problem is the whole class freaks out when they hear that. The more clueless folks already start coming up with theories that he's blackmailing the girl somehow. And that's why I said things went off the rails. Now, Nina is dying of curiosity to know what they were up to yesterday when they disappeared together. Meanwhile, the sweet Umi sends a message to the main guy apologizing for her friend's unfiltered behavior, and later something interesting happens. The three of them end up having lunch together, kind of by accident. Yu is super excited, and Umi liked the place too, since it's really private and cute. And it makes sense, since this is the hideout where the main guy usually eats alone. He never imagined he'd be there sharing a table with the two of them. Turns out, right at recess, Yu came up to him and asked if they could have lunch together, which got the whole class buzzing again. The guys were dying of jealousy and kept staring at the poor main guy with some pretty nasty looks. Umi even tried to warn her friend that she was being a bit too forward. But Yu isn't mean, she's just kinda clueless. She thinks that since he doesn't like crowds, just hanging out with them would be more comfortable for him. In her innocence, she doesn't see any problem with it, which is only partly true. Umi asks what Maki thinks about all this, and he admits that he also gets a little nervous about the situation. So Yu's brilliant solution to resolve the conflict is to have all three of them go out to lunch together. Since it worked yesterday, she thought it would work again. And since the main guy is starting to trust Umi, he ended up agreeing. And that's how this unlikely trio ended up there. When it's time to eat, Yu keeps an eye on Maki's lunchbox because the food looks really good. She immediately asks for a little bit to try, and since Maki is a polite guy and not stingy at all, he shares right away. She's impressed by his cooking skills, and he explains that he always cooks because his mom works too much. That actually makes Yu a little upset, thinking he cooks better than a lot of people out there. Anyway, she devours his food because she liked it so much. Umi also asks for a bit, and when she tries it, she actually gets frustrated because it's just not fair for someone to be that good. And Maki is so next level that he even makes dessert. She gets even more excited and asks what was the last good thing he made. He says that just the other day he made some souffle pancakes that turned out perfect. This is another blow to poor Yu's pride, who had already tried cooking before and thought she could at least beat him when it came to desserts, but realized there's just no way to compete. And the worst part is that Maki is super modest, saying it's nothing special and that he just follows YouTube tutorials. Yu is dying of envy now because she really wants to try his desserts too. With all his kindness, the protagonist says that if she wants it so much, he can make something for her any day. The girl lights up instantly. She doesn't want to waste any time and immediately asks if she can go to his house today. The protagonist thinks that's fine, and Yu is already planning to bring Umi along too. After that, she quickly heads out to buy something to drink, and while they're alone, Umi comments that her friend really is an amazing person, something Maki had already noticed, but that she's always on full blast. She's so innocent, it's like she's a little puppy. But taking advantage of the moment, Umi gets serious and asks if he isn't getting a lot of criticism because of her. She doesn't mean any harm, but she knows that a mommy doesn't care at all about what others think, which is one of her best qualities, but it ends up affecting those around her. The protagonist says he doesn't mind because he's already used to it. Besides, it's not like they're chasing after him, and he doubts it'll go any further than that. But Umi explains that if any problem comes up, she wants him to let her know. After all, whether he likes it or not, they're talking about a mommy, the hottest girl in the class. Hearing that makes the protagonist a bit thoughtful, but he knows it's true. No one gave it an official title, but it's become an unspoken rule. A mommy is number one, and the second most beautiful is our dear Umi. Even so, he tries to say that's just nonsense and nobody takes it seriously. But from Umi's point of view, it's a fact. Yu has always been the prettiest, both inside and out. The protagonist was about to say something, but she cuts him off, saying that soon enough he'll end up liking her too. At that moment, Yu comes back and starts chatting with her friend, but the protagonist is left there, mulling over what he just heard and starting to realize a few things. And to wrap things up, we get to see an interesting scene. Nina takes advantage of the girls being alone while changing for PE class and asks Yu where this sudden interest in our protagonist came from. Her explanation is pretty simple. He's just a really good guy, he has his own opinions, and he looks people in the eye when he talks, something Umi does a lot too, which is why she felt comfortable around him. Time goes by and soon they're already at our protagonist's house after class. He makes the dessert he promised, and honestly, the guy's a real pro, cause both girls clean their plates. That left Yu feeling a little down, because she knows that even if she followed the recipe step by step, she still wouldn't get results like his. Umi burst out laughing, saying her friend never pays attention to the details, but Yu didn't let it slide and reminded her that Umi isn't exactly a role model either. Last Valentine's Day, she tried to make chocolate and ended up with something that looked like burnt charcoal, which she called a cookie. The protagonist found it interesting, and they explained that at their old school, the girls used to exchange chocolates with each other, and it was a blast. Then Maki remembered that they went to Tachibana school together, which is the fanciest one in the area. He thought it was a little odd that they both transferred together to a regular school, but decided not to ask about it now and just enjoy the moment playing video games. And wouldn't you know it, Yu is a beast at games. She totally wiped the floor with Umi and even our protagonist. Maki was blown away and asked her for some tips on how she pulled off certain moves, and Yu, being super helpful, got really close to him to show him. Meanwhile, Umi just watched the whole scene with that look like she was analyzing everything. As they were about to leave, Yu remembered she forgot to invite Maki out too, since he paid for the snacks and she wanted to return the favor by taking him out to eat, since cooking isn't really her thing. But Umi immediately said, this time she's not coming along. Yu thought it was unfair, but Umi insisted that the two of them would do just fine on their own. It's obvious that Yu wants to get closer to Maki, so much so that she calls him right after to ask if he wants to go out on Friday. But our boy surprises her and says he already has plans with someone else. I'm so proud of my boy. As soon as Umi hears this, she pretends she forgot her phone and runs back to Maki's house. She gets there completely out of breath and just stares at him. The main character asks if she forgot something, and her reaction is to pinch his nose and say they'll see each other tomorrow. Then she runs off, leaving the poor guy totally confused. The next day, the two of them are hanging out, like always, talking about things they like. Maki bought the latest volume of a manga she loves, and Umi immediately got all excited, wanting to know where he hid it. He tried to say that he hadn't even read it yet, but for her, that's not a problem. The plan is for them to read it together. They go to his room, dive into the story, and go through a whirlwind of emotions. The manga was intense. It seemed like everything was going to go wrong, but in the end, everything turned out fine. Umi liked it so much that she decided to read it again and spent the whole day there with him. The main guy, tired from so much reading, decided to make some coffee to wake up. He was gonna ask if she wanted some, but saw that the girl had already crashed and fallen asleep. He thought it was funny how she trusts him enough to relax like that, but sleep got to him too, and they both ended up falling asleep right there. Until the worst nightmare for any man happens. The main guy wakes up startled and immediately starts apologizing to Umi, thinking it was her calling him. But when he turns around, he comes face to face with his mom, who saw the whole scene. She got off work early, and now she wants a really good explanation for what she's seeing. After hearing the story, his mom, being a responsible woman, calls Umi's family and apologizes 1,000 times for her son's slip-up. Meanwhile, the two of them talk in secret, both feeling a bit awkward about the situation. Maki's mom finishes the call and lets him know that since it's already really late, Umi will be spending the night there. The girl gets super embarrassed, but her future mother-in-law insists and tells her to go take a shower, saying she'll get some clothes ready for her. Umi tries to give Maki a heads up about the awkward vibe, but the protagonist knows there's no arguing with the lady of the house, so he just tells her to go with the flow. She goes to take a shower and he stays alone with his mom. She says she'd already been suspicious about the smell of women's perfume in the house every Saturday and asks how long Umi has been coming over. He explains that it's been a few months, but makes it clear they're just friends and nothing's going on. His mom says she trusts him, but still gives him a little lecture. Umi is still a girl and he needs to be more careful and considerate. Maki gets the message right away and is already planning to properly apologize to her the next day. The main character goes to his room to change clothes, overthinking everything. But the peace doesn't last long. Suddenly, Umi knocks on the door and comes in. She explains that the clothes his mom lent her were too small, so she had to borrow his sweatshirt instead, which he's fine with, but the awkward tension between them is obvious. He says he'll sleep in the living room so she can have the bed, but before he can get away, Umi grabs his arm because she wants to have a real talk. First, she starts teasing him, saying he's a bad boy for making a beauty like her spend the night at his place. Maki fires back right away, saying it's her fault for sleeping like a rock, though deep down he also feels kinda guilty. In the end, they both admit they messed up by being so relaxed and feel like they've learned their lesson, even if they're both rebels at heart. Taking advantage of the calm mood, the main guy decides to clear up a doubt. Umi already knows he wants to talk about where they stand and the secret of them hanging out together. It's getting hard to keep that hidden. So she promises she'll find the right moment to tell you, but asks him to keep acting normal for now. He trusts her and decides to call it a day. Before he leaves, she wishes him good night, but they're both so awkward saying it face to face that the embarrassment hits them hard all over again. The main character rushes downstairs, buries himself on the couch, and his mom, just passing by all chill, even asks if he wants to sleep with her. He just pretends not to hear and tries to fall asleep. The next day, the two of them head straight to Umi's house. When her mom shows up, the main character almost has a nervous breakdown, but politely introduces himself as Maki Maehara. Miss Sora Sanage, a good-humored woman in her 40s, introduces herself too and immediately scolds her daughter. She says she doesn't mind her having fun, but she wants to know where she is and who she's with, so she doesn't have to worry. The two of them apologize and promise to be more careful. Then the serious mood ends and Sora starts the interrogation. How did he become friends with her daughter? Maki turns bright red while she bombards the poor guy with questions. She says her daughter's all mysterious in that, as a mother, she just wants to know how the girl managed to get her first boyfriend. Umi freaks out right away, says it's none of her business, and insists for the 1,000th time that they're not dating. She even warns Maki not to encourage the old witch and goes to get some fruit for them to eat. Her mom still teases her, saying her daughter is way too clumsy to cut fruit, but takes advantage of Umi leaving to ask a serious favor, for Maki to take good care of her daughter. Even with her quirky ways, she's a good person. Maki gives that smile and says he already knows that. Sora gets all happy and gives him the green light, saying that if they want to have a sleepover, they can do it at her house too. That way she can keep an eye on things and feel more at ease. Umi comes running back, cuts off her mom's conversation and tries to shut her up, but her mom keeps teasing her like she's a little kid. Time passes and back at school, the teacher announces that she needs 2 volunteers to organize the sports festival. Nobody wants the headache, obviously, so the solution is to draw lots. And sure enough, the protagonist draws the lucky slip and becomes the boys' representative. The mood sours because some students start laughing at the girl who gets picked with him, saying she'll have to babysit the guy since he can't even speak in public. Nina is furious at the lack of respect, knowing they're only doing this because you showed interest in him. Umi's practically foaming at the mouth with anger. Maki saw this coming, and the other girls are dodging responsibility just so they don't have to be near him and become the target of gossip. He tries to keep his cool, but of course those jokes sting. But right in the middle of all this tension, Yu herself stands up, asks the teacher for permission, and says loud enough for the whole class to hear, "Does everyone here hate Maehara or what?" The silence is immediate. I just want to understand why they always do the same thing. Either they ignore the guy or they exclude him, which honestly makes no sense since the main character didn't do anything wrong. But it's a good thing Yu spoke up because the teacher wasn't doing anything. Taking advantage of being right next to him, she asks if she can volunteer to do the project with her friend. And the teacher says that's fine, as long as he agrees too. But the group didn't notice one detail. Yumi was also picking one of the papers. And guess what? She picked the winning one. She herself tells the teacher that it's only fair for the person who drew the paper to do the project. Besides, she has plenty of free time and actually wants to do it. Yu tries to say that she wanted to work with him, but Yumi asks her to calm down. She understands that her friend is upset about the way they treat the main character. The whole class feels the weight of the scolding, but honestly, I think they deserved it. Yu tries to apologize to Yumi, but her friend tells her to apologize to the class and to the main character. And that's exactly what she does. In the end, the decision is made. The main character and Yumi are going to work together, and he asks for the class's support. When the two of them are together, our main character tells Yumi how amazing she was for doing that. She agrees that she was, of course, but admits that Yu was even more amazing. Yu stood up to everyone without beating around the bush and didn't care at all if it ruined the mood. For Yumi, it's amazing that her friend can get so worked up to defend someone. And she's sure that even the main character was shaken when he heard Yu talk like that. To be honest, Yumi says she could never do something like that because she always prioritizes keeping a good atmosphere among everyone. But right at that moment, say the student council president shows up and the conversation ends there. But our main character just can't stop thinking that Yumi seemed kinda down. He thinks it's his fault for causing all this trouble. But instead of feeling sorry for himself, he decides the best thing to do is to give it his all and try even harder. After class, Yumi runs into Yu, who was there waiting for her. And the reason? Just to say thank you. Yu knows that if her friend hadn't stepped in, she definitely would have said much worse things. Yumi gives her a friendly scolding, agreeing that's true, but also says she's the one who should be thankful. Yu doesn't get why, and Yumi explains that usually the whole class gets along, but deep down it's because the two of them stood up for their friend. For Yu, either way, her friend showed up like a knight in shining armor, and that brings back a lot of memories from when they were kids. The next day, things change. We see Yumi telling the class that they need to make a decorative object, which nobody likes, since everyone was hoping to set up a cafe instead. Yumi understands their frustration, but she throws out some bait. If they really put effort into the project, maybe the girls will do cosplay. Just imagining how beautiful they'd look gets the whole class super excited. But hold on, when Yumi says the girls, she only means Yu and Nina. She herself isn't going to wear anything because her role is to be the producer, and her only job is to make the most of their talents so their class will be the best of all. She asks our protagonist if he agrees with the plan. He, of course, has absolutely no idea how to answer, but Yumi also wants to know if anyone has any suggestions. Silence takes over. No one, absolutely no one, has an idea. That's when our protagonist takes the first step. He raises his hand and says he has a proposal. The guy is dying of embarrassment, gathers all the courage he has, but at least he speaks up. His idea? Making mosaics out of empty cans. When class ends, he goes to talk to Yumi, completely exhausted. Making a suggestion in front of the whole class drained years off his life, but he feels relieved to have Yumi by his side. He even comments that if it had been with someone like Yu, he definitely would have been way more nervous. Yumi agrees and says he should thank his own luck, but then decides to tell the truth. Feel the drama? She lied. That day of the drawing, she didn't actually pick the winning slip to be his partner. She just pretended she did, and since no one questioned it, the plan worked. Yumi thinks he's gonna scold her for doing something wrong, but he says the opposite. The main character admits that he saw everyone treating that drawing like it was some kind of punishment. That's why, out of everyone there, he's glad she got the spot. And that makes the girls super happy. From then on, the class gets to work on the project. And as always, Yumi is at the forefront, leading almost everything. Meanwhile, she's with the main character working on a drawing. She doesn't really like the result, but to him, it's amazing. The plan is to turn that into a mosaic, decide on a color palette, and the rest will be done with the cans. And speaking of cans, Yu, who was put in charge of that, shows up right on time. The poor thing vents that people are complicated and there are a bunch of cans full of cigarette butts. For our main character, it's no big deal. They just have to wash everything anyway, since they'd have to clean it because of the sugar from the drinks. While they're talking, Yu catches a glimpse of the manga they were using as a reference, gets excited, and asks if she can try drawing too. When she finishes, the main character is blown away. She did an amazing job. He even jokes, asking if she's secretly a professional illustrator. Yo laughs, says no, but admits it's been a while since she drew something she actually liked. Yumi tries to play it cool, but she gets a little upset. She admits that Yu is way better at this, so she decides to hand over the art part to her. In exchange, Nina will take on the job of sorting the cans. Hearing this really cheers Yu up, and she's happy to work closer to the main character. But again, Yumi doesn't seem happy with the situation at all. Days go by, and the students stay focused on their work. Yu is super focused on her art, always with Yumi's support. In the end, the drawing turns out absolutely spectacular. Yumi shows the piece to the girls in the class, who totally agree. After all, that girl is good at everything. And out of nowhere, those same girls take the chance to thank Yumi for handling that mess the other day. They admit they went too far and treated the main character really badly, so it made sense for Yu to react the way she did with them. They even mention that if Yumi hadn't stepped in, things would have gotten a lot worse. But Umi shifts the focus and says that the main character is working really hard on the project, asking them to give him a lot of support from now on. Umi was already about to leave when she gets a message from our main character praising her for the excellent work she's done. Of course, she wants even more attention and asks to be spoiled a bit more. The main character doesn't disappoint. He calls her a legend, a titan, a beast, and a bunch of other things. But then comes the annoying part. He says that even though it's Friday, it's better for her to rest today. In other words, they won't be meeting up like they usually do. Later on, we see our main character completely alone, working on the mosaics. That's when reality hits. He realizes it's been a long time since he spent a day like this. He went from being totally alone to having Umi by his side, and now he's alone again. And because he can't stop thinking about her, he just can't focus on anything. Unable to take it anymore, he grabs his phone and calls Umi. She was at karaoke with some friends, but quickly steps out to answer. The girl is surprised by the call, and the main character makes up an excuse. He says that since he's doing all the design work at home, maybe she could come over to review it, and then they could eat and play games afterward. Umi, who isn't clueless, starts laughing and teases him. He just wanted to say that he missed her. He tries to deny it, but he's a terrible liar. Joking around, Umi insists that he tell the truth. She wants to hear him say that he's dying of loneliness without his dear Umi. The protagonist gets all embarrassed, says he'll do everything by himself, and threatens to hang up, but Umi tells him to wait. Actually, she wants to go there too, because she kinda misses him. The conversation almost doesn't continue because Yu shows up asking if everything's okay. Umi quickly makes up an excuse, saying something came up at home and she has to leave. And so she goes to meet our protagonist. As soon as she arrives, she starts teasing him, but quickly notices how much work he's already done. Time goes by, she starts to feel tired and asks if she can lean back for a bit. The protagonist says it's no problem, but Umi immediately thinks he wants her to sleep over again. She warns him that he's getting a little too bold, but her mom already gave her the green light to smack him if he tries anything funny. The poor guy turns bright red with embarrassment and tries to play it cool, but Umi just keeps staring at him. Then she simply rests her head on his shoulder. She was about to say something really important at that moment, but the doorbell rings. And guess who it is? It showed up out of the blue. Our protagonist goes to the door to see what happened. She apologizes for the late hour, but then heads straight to the room and tells Umi that she already knows she's there. There is no point in hiding. The protagonist lets Yu in, so they can talk. Yu says she doesn't want to stay long, so she won't interrupt their alone time. The protagonist asks how she found out, and the girl, very straightforward, explains that Umi started using her family as an excuse way too often, which wasn't normal. But what Yu really wants to know is why her friend hid the fact that she was spending time with them. Umi freezes and doesn't know what to say. To help, the protagonist takes the blame, saying he was the one who asked to keep it a secret. But Yu just wants to talk to Umi and asks if that's true. Umi's silence hurts Yu, who asks if her friend doesn't trust her. Yu even gets scared, thinking maybe she was the only one who considered the two of them friends. Umi tries to deny it, but can't give an honest answer. Her mind drifts back to their childhood, remembering how the two of them were inseparable. But Yu was always the center of attention. Many times, Umi tried to make plans with other girls, but by the weekend, Yu had already stolen the spotlight and made plans instead. In other words, Umi does have something stuck in her throat, but she doesn't want to say it, and she makes that very clear to her friend. Sensing the heavy atmosphere, Umi apologizes to the protagonist for dragging her into this situation. She gets ready to leave, and Yumi even tries to go with her, but Umi stops her and says she wants to be alone. Before closing the door, she apologizes again, feeling like a terrible friend. Yu gets really worried seeing her like that, since Umi has never acted this way before, and she basically asks the protagonist for help to figure out what to do. The saddest part is that the next day, the one who's most scared is our protagonist. Umi isn't answering his messages, and she hasn't shown up at school yet. The guy's a bundle of nerves. But suddenly, who walks into the classroom together? Yu and Umi. Umi acts like nothing happened and says good morning to the protagonist. But right after that, he gets a message from Yu, asking if, by any chance, he managed to talk to her friend. He replies that he didn't, and Yu said she couldn't either. Time passed, and things got way too awkward to start a conversation. But today, Umi showed up at Yu's house, acting totally normal, so she thought everything had been sorted out. The only thing Umi said to Yu was an apology for what happened on Friday, asking her to just forget about it. That's when the protagonist starts to reflect. He thought it was hard to keep the secret he shared with her, but the truth is, Umi also had her own secrets and was carrying all of that by herself. At that very moment, he heads up to the rooftop where the whole group is working. The girls are there getting organized when the protagonist shows up calling for Umi. The problem is, the poor guy ends up speaking too loudly and draws everyone's attention, saying he needs to have a very important conversation with her. Umi tries to dodge him, making up the excuse that she still has work to do, but Yu and Nina immediately catch on to what's happening and say they can handle things on their own. With no way out, Umi ends up going to talk with him. They go to a storage room and she's furious. After all, their relationship was supposed to be a secret, and he just put her in a tight spot in front of everyone. The protagonist defends himself by saying it's her fault for leaving him hanging, which Umi can't really argue with, but he suggests they keep sorting the cans while they talk. Umi notices his silence and asks if he's really not gonna ask anything. He pretends not to understand, but she knows the guy is really confused about her disappearance. He then asks if she finally wants to get things off her chest. Umi admits that she still doesn't feel ready, but she also knows they can't keep going like this, especially with things still unresolved with Yu. The protagonist replies that he'd love to know what's going on in her head, but he won't force her. He agrees to wait as long as it takes. Suddenly, she gives him a tight hug from behind. His back. Umi curls up there, calling him a complete idiot. She admits that she loves how understanding he is, but warns him that it can also be a bad thing. She points out that people might take advantage of his kindness, which is exactly what she's doing, being a coward. The protagonist tries to turn around to look at her, but she stops him right away. Looking at her face is off limits right now. The girl's dying of embarrassment, but even so, she asks if he'd be willing to listen to her story until the end, but only after the cultural festival. He agrees without any problem. Relieved, she lets him go and promises that she'll also talk to Yu, but she needs some time, which makes our protagonist really happy. And so, the day of the festival arrives. The school is packed, with lots of people going back and forth having fun. That decorative mosaic our protagonist and the others made turned out amazing. It's huge and catches everyone's attention. His classmates are really happy that he came up with the idea. When the two of them finally get a moment alone, he asks her for a favor. No pressure, but he wonders if he can hold her hand, saying she looks like she's cold. Umi realizes he's just trying to cheer her up, and thinking it's a pretty bold move, she gives in, holds his hand, and thanks him, saying she feels calmer now. But right at that moment, the door opens. It's Yu, accompanied by two friends. Luckily, she didn't see them holding hands. She just calls the girls over to come closer. The protagonist doesn't know them, so Yu introduces them as friends from elementary school. However, Umi recognizes them right away. She tells Yu that they're her friends and has the courage to ask the girls directly if they ever considered her a friend too. The two of them just look away in silence. Umi realizes that the confrontation she had been putting off will have to happen sooner than she expected. The atmosphere gets tense. She asks both Yu and the protagonist to listen real carefully because she's about to tell the whole truth about her inferiority complex. Back in the day, we see our dear Umi together with these two girls when they were still little. They were giving Umi a hand so she could become student council president, but suddenly she noticed Yu off in the distance. Umi stared intently, really curious, and asked her friends to wait because she had something to take care of. That's when she approached for the first time and introduced herself as Sanagi Umi. Little Yu was really shy, but she introduced herself too. With all her innocence, Umi asked why she always walked home alone after class, or if she didn't have any friends to keep her company. Hearing that really got to Little Yu. She admitted that everyone avoided her at her old school, mostly because of her hair and eye color. She ended up all alone because she was terrified the same thing would happen again now. Umi immediately understood where she was coming from and reached out her hand, saying that from that moment on, the two of them would go to class together. That's how they became best friends, and where this whole story began. It was Umi who gave Yu that little push to introduce herself to her two friends. As soon as they laid eyes on Yu, they were charmed, especially since she's really beautiful. Thanks to Umi's support, Yu started to feel much more confident. After that, she came out of that shell she was used to and started lighting up everyone around her with her beautiful smile. Everything was going really well up to that point, but then Umi realized things were about to change. Something started to feel off when they entered elementary school because Yu and Umi ended up in the same class. Yua was over the moon with happiness, but she also felt bad about being separated from Sine and Manaka. Even so, Yu encouraged the girls to keep having lunch together. That just made her friends laugh because Yu wouldn't leave Umi's side for anything. At this rate, the new kids would end up laughing at him. Yu was about to start worrying about meeting new people, but Umi told her to just be herself, plain and simple. With that, she introduced herself to the class and won over all the girls' hearts. Meanwhile, Umi just watched and thought that she could get that kind of attention too if she really had to. But the truth is, she doesn't like being the center of attention. She also overheard the girls in class saying how beautiful Umi was and that they'd even brag about being her friend. And those words would carry a lot more weight when they reached their third year. Both Umi and Yu made friends easily and got along great. The problem was, from a distance, there was already a group of girls judging Umi. Since Yu was always standing out, Umi started to seem really overshadowed next to her. The girls would tease her, saying she was boring and couldn't understand why she hung out with someone like Yu. And it didn't stop there. Feel the drama that day when Umi invited Sane, Monica, and Yu to hang out as a group. She had won 4 movie tickets and really wanted to have fun with her friends, but that's when the other two apologized and said they already had plans. Umi didn't want to invite just Yu because it would feel awkward to go out with only part of the group, so she decided to go alone. The real letdown came when she found out that Yu had actually gone out with the other 2 girls. Yuka felt bad because she also wanted to have fun with Umi, but according to the other girls, Umi couldn't go because she was focused on her studies and things like that. And Umi ended up overhearing all of this while hiding. According to the girl, this was just a summary of everything that happened up until high school. Obviously, Yu was shocked by this story and asks if that's why she decided to change schools. Umi replies that she only switched schools because the other one was too expensive, but that excuse didn't really fly. The truth is, she wanted to get away from that situation. Of course, Yu came along with her, and the girl thinks that's obvious. After all, she's her best friend. It's true that Sine and Manaka are also her friends, but the most important person has always been Umi. And Umi replies that this might be exactly the problem. She's really grateful for those words, but in the end, she was the only one who had to pay the price for all of this. Besides that, Umi says she talked to Sine and Monica at graduation. They just wanted to get closer to Yu, that's why they did what they did. The most interesting thing is that even though Yu is super popular everywhere, she only calls Umi her true friend. But unfortunately, other people's jealousy started to affect Umi. For example, all the girls who talk to her only do it to get close to Yu, nothing else. Then our protagonist realizes something and Umi confirms it. She just didn't want Yu to find out about any of this, because she was terrified of losing the only friend she worked so hard to make. Taking advantage of the moment, Umi asks Yu if she really likes her. For Yu, that's more than obvious. Ever since they met, she's been her best friend. Umi replies that she likes her a lot too, but at the same time and with the same intensity, she also hates her. Right after saying that, she runs off because she needs to clear her head. Yu even tries to ask her to wait, but there was nothing she could do. Maki then tells Yu that he's going after Umi because he also has a few things to settle with her. When he finds her, she's really sad, staring out the window. Maki teases her, saying that this dramatic pose doesn't suit her at all. Then he pulls up a chair to sit in front of her and says that she's amazing. He can't even believe she kept all of this to herself for so long. He knows it couldn't have been easy, so he tells her that her attitude is admirable. Of course, this touches Umi's heart and she agrees, saying it was a suffocating situation, so she wants him to admire her even more. That's when our protagonist starts pampering the girl. Meanwhile, Nina was casually heading up to the rooftop and ran right into those two girls from before. When she gets up there, she finds her friend deep in thought and asks what's going on. Yu replies that she's been doing a lot of thinking, which surprises Nina since that's not really like her. On the other hand, Umi's feeling terrible and tells herself that she's the worst person in the world right now. Maki asks if she hates herself or something like that, and she confirms it. She spent a long time doing to Yu the same thing that hurt her so much when it was done to her. She lied and kept her friendship with Maki a secret, leaving Yu completely out of it. That's why she's wondering what she should do now. According to our protagonist, taking a step back would be the best choice. And he's talking about his relationship with her. He knows very well that the two of them want to make up. And since that's going to take some time, he prefers that she give her full attention to Yu. But he only suggests that they stop hanging out together all the time, not that they stop being friends. They'll still run into each other at school and text every day. Besides, they'll still be together on the committee, so they can talk without anyone knowing anything. He kept talking and talking until Umi lost her patience and told him to shut up. She tells him he's given too much information at once and that he needs to listen to her side too. At that moment, she holds his hands and asks him to say what he's really feeling. She wants to know if he'll miss her if they stop seeing each other, which is pretty obvious for Maki. So Umi asks if he wants everything to stay the way it is. Our protagonist says yes, but he also wants her to make up with her friend. Umi thinks he's asking for too much, but she totally gets the situation. So she thanks him for being honest with her. Maki figures she already knows what she needs to do. Umi admits she still has her doubts, but even so, the two of them go hand in hand so she can talk to Yu. Yu comments that the two of them have gotten pretty close, and Umi agrees. She explains that even though it's a recent friendship, he's someone very important to her. Umi immediately wants to know if he's more important than she is, but Umi assures her that they're both equally important. No one is above anyone else. After that, she apologizes for having kept it a secret until now. That was exactly what Yu needed to hear because she was terrified. For a moment, she thought Umi didn't consider her a friend anymore. She opens up and says that Maki is way cooler and smarter than she is, and that she thought she would be replaced. Umi apologizes again and says she never wanted her to feel that way, that she was just acting silly. Yu replies that she messed up too and gives her a big hug, saying she had no idea how much she had made her suffer. All of this happened because she became too dependent on Umi, and she takes the opportunity to apologize for that as well. Umi then says she was thinking about taking a break from her friendship with Maki so the two of them could be alone together. Yu turns to our protagonist and asks if he agrees with that. He replies that he just wants to respect Umi's decisions. This makes Yu realize that both Umi and Maki are just a couple of big dummies. Her friend apologizes but says she doesn't see any other way out of the situation. She wants them to be real friends, on equal footing, not just for show, and she doesn't want to hide anything from anyone anymore. So Yu says that if that's the case, there's no other option, but that she'd never accept an idea like that, not even dead. She asks Umi to really think it over because she feels sorry for Maki. She doesn't want to monopolize her friend right when our protagonist is dying to be with her, because that would basically just reverse the roles that caused the problem in the first place. But Umi insists that if they don't do anything, nothing will change. Yu counters that it doesn't matter, it's all fine. In exchange for all this mess, she's only going to ask them to do one little thing for her, that they hold hands and enjoy the festival, and they better have fun. Of course, for them, the situation is super awkward. People who see Umi think she's gorgeous and comment that she must be holding hands with him because of some dare or something like that. Meanwhile, Nina takes a bunch of pictures of the two of them. Umi gets annoyed and promises that Nina will pay dearly for this later, but for now they'd rather just focus on having fun. Umi spots a haunted house and decides to go in, saying she's scared, but the truth is she doesn't care at all and drags Maki along with her. As you'd expect, our protagonist is scared out of his mind inside while Umi is having the time of her life. At least when they come out, she buys him a drink as a consolation prize for all that suffering. From where they are, they can see the mosaic their class made, and it looks amazing. Our protagonist says of course it turned out great, they worked really hard on it after all. Umi comments that maybe they'll even win the prize. From a distance, she sees Yu with the other two girls, but this time she doesn't feel that ache in her chest anymore. And just like that, the school festival comes to an end. When Friday comes, Maki and Umi meet up as usual. They try to act as natural as possible, just like every other time they get together, but there's one small detail. Yu is watching their every move. According to her, they don't need to pay attention to her since she's just a little ghost. That was her second demand. Besides making them walk hand in hand at the festival, Yoon wanted to see exactly what they got up to at these secret meetings. And obviously, they couldn't say no. That's why they're in this kind of awkward situation. But as soon as they turn on the video game and start playing, they completely forget that Yu is even there. They act just like they always do, arguing over anything and teasing each other mercilessly. Yu just watches and notices that, in fact, the two of them get along really well. When the match ends, Maki wins once again, and Umi is not happy about it at all. Our protagonist says she can ask for a rematch anytime and anywhere she wants, suggesting next week. But then they remember the situation they're in, and Umi, already a bit annoyed, goes to talk to Yu. Her friend asks if she has anything to say to the poor little ghost. Umi can only apologize again and admits that she is way too much fun with Maki. She knows she promised they wouldn't see each other so much, but admits she won't be able to handle it. So she asks if it's okay for the two of them to keep meeting on Fridays, like they've always done. Yu doesn't see any problem with that. The only thing she asks in return is that Umi spoils her a lot more than before. Then she gives her friend another big hug, saying that this way they'll also be able to talk about a lot more things. Umi thanks her and agrees right away. After that, Yu says that this little ghost here is going to stop getting in the way. Umi even tries to go with her, but Yu says there's no need, that she can use the time to have fun with Maki, and even teases the boy by asking if he doesn't prefer it that way too. Our protagonist was about to be honest and say he was already tired and didn't mind, but Yu insists so much that they end up staying. When night falls, our protagonist sneezes. He tries to play it off by saying his nose is just itchy, but Umi immediately realizes he's not feeling well and tells him that if he's cold, he just needs to say so. She then grabs the blanket and has him come closer. He doesn't really get the idea at first, so Umi yells at him to come over so they can share the blanket. And with an invitation like that, how could he say no, right? Already under the blanket, Umi asks if she can stop calling him by his last name. She spent all this time doing that, but Yu didn't because she doesn't care about those rules. Maki, calling her Umi, says it's fine, which makes her super embarrassed. After all, that's not her last name either, and she ends up giving him a little smack because of it. Our protagonist is left totally confused. He just called her by her name, that's all. Umi lets him know that's just how she is, so he'd better get used to it. But then Maki looks deep into her eyes and a little shyly says that he usually doesn't say things like this because he gets embarrassed, but when she smiles like that, she looks like the most beautiful girl in the world. That confession catches Umi completely off guard, but instead of getting flustered, she fires back by asking if he actually likes her, leaving the poor guy totally speechless. When the date ends and they're saying goodbye, she brings up what they were talking about a few minutes earlier. They had left the conversation on a playful note, but she really wants to know if he likes her. Our protagonist tries to play dumb and asks in what way she means, but he can't handle the pressure and throws the question back at her, wanting to know if maybe she's the one who likes him. After all, asking a question like that can only mean one thing. Umi stops and really thinks about the situation because it's complicated. She feels like she can't just say she likes him because what she feels is way bigger than that. Feel the vibe. She gets closer, gives him a little kiss, and says she likes him a lot. And she even gives him a warning. If he wants a kiss on the lips, he's gonna have to confess his feelings to her first. With that, she goes inside, dying of embarrassment, leaving our protagonist completely frozen outside.
Now we enter a dream that our protagonist is having. And look, it's a pretty bitter dream because he's listening to his mom and dad arguing. His mom gets really upset because her husband doesn't say a single word. And our protagonist doesn't understand why she's crying and so sad. At that moment, his dad just gets up and is about to leave, but before he goes, he gently pats the boy on the head, and just like that, he disappears, making Maki wake up from the dream. It's interesting, because Maki has been having the same dream over and over since he started high school, but after a while, he looks at the messages he exchanged with his mom on his phone and remembers what happened not long ago. That's why he thinks he understands the reason he's having these dreams now. To be honest, he also likes Umi and would love to tell her that as soon as possible, but he knows that feelings can disappear in the blink of an eye, since that's something he saw with his own eyes at home. He was really happy to find out how she felt, but he doesn't think he's able to be with Umi right now. And speaking of her, he gets a message from the girl asking if they can go to school together. Because of all this, Maki wants to work hard so that one day he can proudly say that Umi is his girlfriend. Later on, while they're walking, Umi kinda overhears what he says and assumes that he just wants to put off answering her confession because he sees her as a plan B, in other words, a second option. Maki tries to explain that it's not really like that, but he understands why she would see the situation that way and just apologizes. Umi says he really should feel bad, but she also understands that she is his first choice, so she doesn't want to argue too much and tells him he should be really happy to have such a good and understanding friend, since any other girl would have told him to get lost. Even so, he still feels pretty down, so she tries everything she can to make him feel better, since the boy said he wants to be worthy of her. Then, she notices that his lips are chopped, and decides to lend him some of her lip balm. When she's done putting it on him, Maki obviously gets a little nervous. After all, it's something she uses every day. But Umi finds it hilarious that he's worried about something as silly as an indirect kiss. The poor guy can't hide his embarrassment, but for her it's no big deal, because actually that lip balm is brand new. In fact, she gives him the lip balm as a gift so he can take good care of his lips. Our protagonist accepts it, but also feels awkward because she's really teasing him a lot. And as they keep walking, Umi gets even bolder and more playful, saying that when their relationship moves forward, then they'll be able to use the same one. After dropping that line, she runs off. When they get to the classroom, Yu obviously throws herself at Umi because she really likes her. But she's not the only one saying good morning. This time, Nina also says good morning to the person in charge, referring to our protagonist. He doesn't really understand why she's calling him that. And the girl explains that it's because he was one of the people in charge during the festival, so it should be obvious. To him, the explanation doesn't make much sense anyway. And speaking of the project they did, it looks like the decorations were a big hit. They even won an award for it, but Nina doesn't want to waste time talking about that stuff. She gets straight to the point and asks if by any chance he's dating Umi. Right, then Umi shows up to try to get her friend to shut up. Nina tries to play it off, saying it's just a joke and that she doesn't need to worry about it, but before she knows it, they're already squeezing her head. Because of that, the poor thing can't ask any more questions, and Umi goes back to her seat, but keeps shooting daggers at her friend with her eyes. Umi says that if she has a problem, she should just say it. Young replies that it's nothing, she just noticed that Umi's acting a little weird around Maki and asks if something happened. Umi gets super embarrassed, says nothing happened, but Yu doesn't miss the chance to tease her because her friend is turning all red. The poor girl tries to come up with a bunch of excuses, but no one is buying it. The thing is, it's not just us watching this scene, there's a guy there who seems really interested in everything that's going on. Later on, we see our protagonist texting Umi. This time he wants to plan something for Christmas. The girl immediately calls him a perv, thinking he wants her to spend the night at his place or something like that. He admits that's kind of what he meant, but with no bad intentions. In the end, the idea doesn't go anywhere because she already has plans for that day. Putting that aside, we go back to focusing on Yu, who at that very moment is getting a confession from a boy. But in the middle of a conversation, she cuts him off and says she's sorry, but she already has plans with her friends, and even adds that there's already someone she likes. Nina and the others who were spying on the scene decided it's the perfect time to come over so they can get Yum out of there and make things less awkward. Besides, Yu already knew they were watching, so Nina and Umi just go over there. And speaking of plans, it looks like someone told Maki they're gonna rent a room at the Civic Center to throw a little party. The thing is, it's not just for them, they're inviting other schools too. To take part in this event, people had to sign up way in advance. Unfortunately, Maki wasn't friends with the girls back then, so he decided to skip the party altogether, a decision he really regrets these days. When he tells the girls about this, he gets pretty upset and says maybe there's still time to sign up, but the truth is it's already too late. Even so, he encourages the girls to go and have fun together, but before he can finish talking, Nina interrupts. She says she's not going to the party with the dynamic duo. She's going with her boyfriend, an older guy who confessed his feelings to her at the festival. Obviously, the girls are left speechless, especially because they found out about it so suddenly. And while they're all excitedly talking about the news, that same guy from before is watching everything from a distance again. It's actually kind of creepy, especially because right after that, he corners Maki. He comes up and asks if our protagonist knows who he is. Maki says yes, since they're classmates, and remembers that his name is Seki. Apparently, the guy came over saying he wanted to talk and dragged Maki over there. Our protagonist gets a little nervous, thinking he's about to get into trouble, but Seki says he'll get straight to the point. He admits that he only plays baseball, and before starting high school, he was never interested in having a girlfriend. But when he saw Yu at the entrance ceremony, his mind went blank. At first, he thought it would be enough just to watch her from afar, and that was it. But now Christmas is coming, the school year's about to end, and he doesn't even know if they'll be in the same class next year. Not wanting to waste any time, he directly asks if Maki can be his friend, and then asks Umi to introduce him to Yu. On top of that, he even wants Maki to invite him to the Christmas party with them. Basically, the guy was asking for a miracle in the form of favors. Our protagonist just stays quiet and then apologizes, saying that if he asks to do all that, he's gonna have to refuse. After turning him down, he asks if Seki needs anything else. The guy feels really bad, but he totally understands. After all, he asked for a bunch of things from someone he'd never even spoken to before. In Seki's mind, Maki must think he's totally clueless. Our protagonist says it's not really like that, but he's really sorry he can't help. Even though he's upset, Seki is super polite. He tells Maki not to worry, apologizes for creating an awkward situation, and thanks him for listening. He also admits that he was surprised by Maki. Since Maki is so quiet and reserved, he never imagined he'd have the guts to say no. That makes Seki respect him a little more. Maki thinks that's great, but he feels that if he compares himself to a certain person, he still has a lot to improve. Later, when he's walking back with Umi, she says she has pretty mixed feelings about the Christmas party. That's because among the participating schools is Tachibana, which is exactly where those other girls we've already met go to school. Poor Umi had no idea about that when she signed up. Maki totally understands how uncomfortable that must be for her. And since Umi already paid to go, there's not much she can do about it. So her plan is just to go there, eat as much as she can, and leave. She also mentions that the party ends around 8 or 9 at night, so she tries to hint that maybe they could do something afterward. Maki picks up on the hint right away and says he'll be waiting for her with a light snack. When he gets home, Maki finds his mom, who hadn't smoked inside for a long time. She immediately apologizes, but Maki doesn't really mind. He just asks if she has a lot of work. His mom says that this year's been pretty intense, but even so, it's still way better than last year in a lot of ways. Maki agrees and says the past is behind them. The scene reminds him that the last time he saw her smoking like that was about a year ago, right when the divorce papers with his dad started. But right now, he tries to be as supportive as possible. Pouring her some coffee, he asks if she's okay and tells her not to be so hard on herself. She replies that everything's fine, that she's just feeling the weight of the years catching up to her, but mentally she feels much better. Hearing that really warms Maki's heart. He also takes the opportunity to talk about the night of the 24th, but he's not the only one interested in that date, because not long after, Yu shows up super excited, asking if she can go to our protagonist's Christmas party too. Umi deeply regrets it, because not long ago, she had told her friend that she already had plans after the official party and wouldn't be able to go home with her. But Yu only picked up on the part about having plans at night and immediately asked if it was with Maki. Yu thinks that's the cutest thing ever, saying they're such a lovey-dovey couple. Umi, totally embarrassed, fires back, saying they're not even dating yet. Yu asks, "What do you mean, not yet?" Since Maki just pretends not to get it, Yu asks if the two of them are going to meet up on Christmas Eve. Umi tries to fix it by saying it's nothing romantic, that she's just going to see Maki as a friend, and that Yu could even come along if she wanted. And that's exactly what led to this whole situation. Our protagonist can't even explain how he's feeling right now. That's when things get interesting. While they're in class, something happens that grabs everyone's attention. The classroom is peaceful, everyone doing their own thing, when suddenly they hear a really loud voice. It's Seki going straight up to Yu, saying there's something he's wanted to tell her for a long time. Yu says it's fine, and the two of them walk off together. Umi and Nina immediately realize a confession is coming. Umi gets super curious because Nina isn't going after them to see what's going to happen. Her friend replies that it's not because she's not curious, it's just that everyone knows Seki likes her and the answer is already obvious, so it's not that exciting. But Nina jokes that if it were Maki, then she'd definitely be interested. Seeing Umi's angry face, she knows it's better to keep quiet. At the end of the day, what we already knew happens. Yu turns the boy down. For some people in the class, it became a spectacle. After all, he had the guts to put himself out there. So now the group is gonna have to keep him company at Christmas, so the poor guy doesn't end up alone. At that moment, Umi gets a message from Yu, and the two of them go off to talk together. Meanwhile, Nina encourages our protagonist to go talk to Seki. The mood in the classroom is heavy, and it's gonna end up breaking the boy's heart, since the other guys say they're supporting him, but it's all in a mocking tone. Nina is already used to this kind of thing, so she just goes on with her own plans. That's why, right after, we see our protagonist going up to Seki, who is pretty isolated from everyone else. Maki says he was a little hasty. Seki agrees, admits he messed everything up, and since he trusts Maki, he takes the chance to ask what people in the classroom are saying about him. Maybe to cheer him up a bit, our protagonist replies that they're just a bunch of animals talking and that he doesn't speak monkey language. That makes Seki laugh, because our protagonist is a lot bolder than he seems. Seki jokes that the quiet ones are always the worst, but changing the subject, he asks a sincere question. Now that you dumped him, what should he do? Seki says that's what he's been wondering about the most lately, because normally you'd just forget and look for a new love. But obviously, it's not that simple. That's why he admits he's really jealous of our protagonist for going out with Umi. Maki apologizes and clarifies they aren't actually dating yet, leaving Seki confused. He explains the situation, and after understanding, Seki says he can't really give advice, having zero experience with love. Even so, he tells it like it is. Maki needs to hurry up because Umi is getting her popularity back in a big way. Maki doesn't get it, so Seki explains that people have noticed how Umi seems more relaxed and prettier since the festival ended. Guys from other classes are always asking to be introduced to her. The message is clear. Maki needs to make sure no one steals the girl, and that's the best advice he can give as a friend. Maki was about to thank him, but then he stops and asks if they're really friends. Seki replies that after talking, he realized they get along really well, so he figured it wouldn't be a problem to talk like that. Maki doesn't mind, but he starts thinking because he's not sure if it's normal to trust someone you barely know this much. Seki says it's no problem at all, and points out that Maki overthinks things. The protagonist knows that's true, and for now, he agrees that it would be a pleasure for them to be friends. Later, he ends up meeting Umi at his house as usual. This time she was cold, so she asked for some coffee, and being a good host, our protagonist fulfilled her request. Then she starts talking about how surprised she was that he became friends with Seki. She thought the two of them were from completely different worlds and would never get along. But for Maki, this just proves that you never know if you'll get along with someone until you actually get to know them. Umi gets all happy hearing this. Looking at her, our protagonist immediately remembers the advice to hurry up, so he gathers his courage and asks if she'd like to see a movie with him over the weekend. Umi comes right out and asks if he's inviting her on a date. Maki answers that it's kind of like that. He says that he knows they always see each other on Fridays, but they never do anything on the other days, so it would be a nice change of pace. Hearing this doesn't bother the girl at all. Umi gets excited and confirms that yes, it will be a date. But there's a catch. If they're gonna have their date on Saturday, he's gonna have to go with her somewhere else on Friday. The protagonist has no idea where it is, and Umi quickly warns him that if he wants to go on a date with her, he's gonna have to dress really well. After all, he didn't think he was gonna wear the same clothes as always, right? He tries to make some excuses, but she completely rejects the idea. And so, the week went by until the next Friday when they went out together with you. The place is packed with people, and you can't stop looking around, totally distracted. Because of that, she ends up tripping over someone and almost falls. Luckily, Maki manages to catch her in time, and nothing bad happens. She thanks him for the help, and that's when she notices that our protagonist has some pretty strong hands. She asks if that's common among boys, and he says maybe it is, especially for those who play more sports. But while they're talking, Umi shows up and interrupts the two of them. Yu apologizes since it was an accident, and our protagonist also says sorry for what happened. As they keep walking, he tries once again to say he's really sorry about what just happened. Umi says she's not upset, but her attitude says otherwise. So he takes the initiative, grabs her hand, and says he doesn't want them to get separated in the crowd. Umi loves the gesture, but both of them are super embarrassed by the situation. Yu, on the other hand, is loving watching this scene between these two lovebirds. Time goes by and our protagonist tries on a bunch of clothes with the girls, which leaves him completely exhausted. He tries to take a break by going to the bathroom, and in the meantime, he gets a message from Umi saying she can't wait for tomorrow and that she's gonna get as dressed up as she can. That puts Maki on cloud 9, but he can feel the drama. The peace doesn't last long. When he's leaving the bathroom, he bumps into someone. Maki immediately tries to help pick up the papers that fell, but the man recognizes him right away and is shocked since it's been a long time since they last saw each other. And that's how we find out that this man is none other than our protagonist's father. That was the end of the episode. Comment the word part 7 so I know you made it this far and want to see how this drama unfolds. I'll give your comment a heart. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next chapter, because the hype is just getting started. Without further ado, Ribavina is signing off. See you next time.